Detection Collaborative, a detection dog training trio with Stacy Barnett.
Hi.
Robin Greubel.
Hey there.
And Crystal Wing.
What's up?
With humor and a big dose of theory, our trio talks practical training advice and features interviews with top trainers and scientists.
It's Canine Detection Collaborative.
Hey everyone, this is Stacy Barnett, and welcome to the Canine Detection Collaborative. And I'm here with my amazing co-hosts, Robin Greubel.
Hello.
And Crystal Wing.
Hi, friends.
So I'm no longer in Iowa, and the two of them are, and I'm feeling very, very left out. Big sigh, big sigh.
Big sigh.
I know. I did escape before the big crazy storms, at least.
Which was not super big and crazy last night, but at least
the other ones were, though. It took down your apple tree. Come on.
It did take down the apple tree.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it would have been kind of tough for me because I stay in a trailer, but clearly I made an exit. Anyway.
You did.
So we wanted to talk today about getting some Brave on with our dogs and building some Brave and some of our dogs through different avenues, things like play, things like doing some of the functional agility that we've talked about, all those different sorts of things. And this is definitely a topic that is near and dear to my heart, given that I have a little formerly lacking confidence, little fluffy butt dog who now has a big Brave. So that's really what we're going to talk about today. And let's get started.
I think truth in lending. I actually was the one who proposed this particular topic because one of the things that happened during distraction camp was watching some of the handlers have aha moments that as soon as they took off the leash, the dog on the other end of the leash became something that they didn't recognize because all of a sudden the dog got brave.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that I see happen with puppies a lot is that people think that they're protecting their... Now, okay, let's be honest. Let's not do stupid stuff with our puppies. Right?
Yep.
Right. Let's not do stupid stuff with our puppies. Let's not put them in situations where they're going to get hurt. Let's not do any of that stuff.
No.
But it's some of that aspect of letting them explore their world without you being right behind them up their butt.
You mean a helicopter?
Yeah. Let's not be helicopter
handler.
parents. Yes.
Helicopter handler.
Right. Allows them to assert some semblance of bravery and confidence building to get them just to go away from you.
Okay, I need some help. What does it mean when you keep saying for the dog to be brave?
Okay. So in my world, when I start looking at puppy selection and things like that, and I heard this from a Border Patrol handler, oh my gosh, now I feel old, probably 18 years ago, that dogs are born with courage and you give them confidence.
I think that's pretty accurate.
Right? So they intrinsically have courage and you can't build it. It's either there or it's not.
Kind of like Drive.
Kind of like Drive. But you can take a confident dog that's also has a lot of courage and you can actually teach them to not be confident because of all sorts of things that you do.
Right.
And you can take confidence in a dog actually, and you can move it up and down. And so when I start thinking of teaching a dog to be brave, I'm talking about a dog that you're actually allowing them to find out and assert confidence and build their confidence and let it be more their idea than your idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I even go back to my little guy, Y, right? And I've taught a lot of people with dogs that really kind of struggle in that area. And the first feedback I give them is you need to work farther away from your dog. Because what I see, it's a little bit of that helicopter I think hopefully everybody knows what we're talking about when we say the helicopter. It's kind of like when you see like helicopter parents with that parenting style where they kind of hover and they protect their child to all costs.
Oh my God, it's okay. It's okay. Please be okay. Oh my gosh, it's okay. Be so brave, right?
And like, oh my gosh, you're going to get a bad grade. Let's go in and talk to the teacher type of deal, right?
Right.
And I think a lot of times people see kind of like the lack of confidence in their dog. They kind of come in as like the helicopter handler. And they're like trying to like put bubble wrap around their dog's like psyche or whatever. And what's really interesting to me is that a lot of times when you start to see these handlers work so close to their dogs fall into a lot of times like this very passive type of mode that doesn't allow them to get out and to explore and to learn and to build that confidence. And one of the biggest things I've seen is that when you can get that dog farther away from you in handling, that all of a sudden that independence kicks in and a little bravery kicks in. And even for the dogs that are super, super timid, it works that way. And it's amazing.
And this is one of those hard things, right? Because people are often told, well, reassure your dog, give them reassurance.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really want people to challenge their belief system on is, are you giving the dog reassurance when actually that reassurance could be construed as praise from the dog side for acting like they are scared? Now, they may be scared and all sorts of things, but if you actually acknowledge that, okay, yep, they're scared, I'm not going to say anything, but as soon as you give me eye contact, then we're going to play and we're going to have fun and it's okay. But it's not a constant, oh my God, it's going to be, that whole plethora of, I'm teaching them that everything is going to be secure and awesome by giving them a whole bunch of praise while they're being super scared and all sorts of things. So, and I probably sound like a heartless human being. I get that. But remember, if you acknowledge that your dog is afraid and not acting like you want it to in that situation as a trainer, you recognize that situation, you handle it, and then you set that up for success the next time.
Yeah, it's about giving them the tools that they need to cope. And that's kind of what I try to tell people is that it's about giving your dogs the coping mechanisms that they need and building their confidence in themselves.
Yes.
Because I think when we talk about lack of confidence, I kind of try to break it down into 3 buckets. I break it down into confidence in the environment, which is kind of like, are they worried about their environment? There's confidence in their skills. I wonder if this is going to break down into 3. So there's like confidence in their skills. Like, can they do the skills? This may not turn into 3. There's actually going to be like 4, actually. Confidence in the handler, which basically means, are you kind of trustworthy as a trainer or are you completely inconsistent? That can cause confidence issues if you have lack clarity in your training. Go figure. And then the 4th one is kind of a little bit of confidence in like in their self, which is kind of a little bit more inwardly focused, I think. And that really this is where they have to really kind of learn that they can work on their own. They can be independent.
They can solve a problem.
I mean, it's the same type of deal. Like people who don't want to let their dogs like make mistakes. And oh my gosh, what if they don't find the hide? What if Fluffy can't find the hide? Let's go show the hide to Fluffy.
Because they have to end on a good note.
Oh
no, sometimes I just have to end.
Yeah. And I'm like,
it's fine.
Long term, you're making it worse. I'm making my brain hurt right now.
I think about this too. If a child falls down and they get a boo-boo and you can assess pretty quickly that it's just a scrape, it's 2 ways you can kind of respond. It can be, oh, poor thing. Oh, that's just terrible. And typically your response, as you know, is crying, overreacting. And the other one is to say, oh, wow, look what you did. Guess what? You were such a big kid. Let's go get this thing or reward you for being so big. And so how they're responding to that and rewarding those feelings or not the feelings, but the observable behaviors that you want them to be able to pull through. That's kind of the power that I see behind that. The other thing that happened recently was Joe Rosie, one of our previous guests, had the chat. That's what they called it, the chat. The chat.
Ooh, the chat.
Yeah.
Capital T, capital C, the chat.
So I'm really hoping that they continue that chat because I really enjoyed it. So we'll link that too. It was worth listening to.
I'm looking forward to listening to the recording.
Yeah.
I was packing at the time, so I didn't get to listen live.
One of the things they talked about in there was stress inoculation.
Yes.
And that was one of the things that my ears perked to because I had heard about that from her class at the School of Canine Science, the puppy lab. And in one of the modules, it talks about stress inoculation. And it's a psychological technique. And it's not really, there's not a ton about dogs. There is about ENS. And I won't go there right now, but that's kind of our way of looking into it. But it's a psychological technique and they're trying to help individuals cope with stress. And they're doing it by gradually exposing them to stressors, but it's in a very controlled manner. And the takeaway that I got from that module was that it's very helpful for us to do that with our dogs if we're good trainers, basically. And I think that's what I got a lot from the chat was, are these concepts that are good for all people, all dog trainers, or is it better for the great ones, the exceptional ones? So really in this kind of stress inoculation idea, it's about being aware of your dog, having a relationship. So I'll give an example because I do protection sports. One of the things that we do in our sport is we have to introduce stick pressure. And pressure meaning anything that's going to cause the dog to maybe have a question mark. So you could go balls in and have a clatter stick and just make it go raring and clattering, and you could really terrify the animal. Well, that's not going to do any good for anybody. But as part of the sport, they're going to need to hear that sound. And so if you are thoughtful about it, what emotions do you want to tie to that sound? I want my dog to feel big and powerful when they hear that sound because it's going to be the decoy that they're interacting with and that they're fighting at the time. And I want to think about a thoughtful way of introducing that. So as puppies, it's just in the environment when we're playing, because playing is that low stakes way to have them really engaged, have the arousal high. And if you're thinking about play too, and it's the really fun tug kind, you do have a big arousal. You're both kind of like, ooh, I think about we would be able to like hit each other as humans. Like I've played a lot of sports and we could like hit each other on the arm and be like, yeah, that was amazing. And that was a good thing. But if that same friend would have walked up in the street and hit me like that, I would have really reacted in a very wrong way. I'd have been really hurt. So I think that's kind of the benefit of play is that we can have our arousal up, we can have that energy up and interact in a more kind of physical way. And so maybe the first time the stick's just in the environment, maybe the second time I step on it and just kind of make the sound that it makes because I'm stepping on it. And I'm just introducing it in a thoughtful way until I can build that to where it becomes in the environment and it's when it's happening in play and it's when we can be in that kind of arousal state that we're both like really fun and energized. So play is a true way of capturing and using a lot of those maybe stressors they have in life and helping them have good feelings about them.
And I think that whole stress inoculation thing, we could do a whole thing on puppy lab stuff, right? But when I think about what I am doing to my litters of puppies, I sound like a horrible person, right? Their entire, from the time I do the ENS stuff, literally from the time they can actually tootle around, I am doing all sorts of stress inoculations for them. And I was at bird dog training this morning and thinking we were doing de-cheating on water, right? Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, made my head hurt. And I've now got to talk to Joe about building a $400,000 tech pond or something. I don't know, which is so not going to happen because we're going to turn cows on it and they'll ruin it anyway. But but just how to the need for a really, really fast whistle recall, like Crystal and I were talking about earlier, like last night. And then on top of that, thinking about how to get the dogs to take the water instead of the land is all part, and the amount of stress I'm putting on poor little Flash's head because she can't see because it's the glare and all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. But that's a whole bunch of stress that we're putting on our dogs. And in a certain situation, they may or may not be able to handle it, and being able to realize And this is one of the things that I was standing next to Flash and she was failing, right? Until I realized I was sending her too fast and not giving her a chance to actually mark where the bumper fell so that when she hit the water and she lost sight of the bumper for 2 seconds, to not turn around and come back, but to just keep swimming.
So so a little bit of a rush instead of thinking it through.
Right. And so sometimes being aware, and it was really funny because I looked at my bird boy and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to give her 2 or 3 seconds to breathe and then send her. But the different types of stress that you may have with your dog, whether it's environmental or you're asking them to do something they don't understand, and how fast if they do have a stress reaction, can they recover?
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly why inoculating them against little minute pieces of stress all along the way is so incredibly important. And I start this with my puppies. I'm like, yeah, okay, so you got lost in a cat tunnel in the puppy pen. You'll be fine.
I'm kind of like feeling the whole stress inoculation. I think we also kind of do it ourselves, depending upon like...
You have to.
Well, just experience the whole search and rescue thing and having a working dog. Like there was some massive stress inoculation in her training that I have personally felt to the point where, we had when I was out searching out at your place with the coyotes.
Yeah.
And that I was able to actually kind of cope with that, I think had to do with stress inoculation. Because I think if you threw someone in, here you go, let's do a first search with your dog. And oh, by the way, your dog almost gets eaten by coyotes. You're going to have a heart attack.
Okay, Prize did not almost get eaten by coyotes. For the rest of the listeners who didn't hear the story, she didn't get almost eaten.
There's the story. Everything ended up okay. But we were really close to the coyotes and it was kind of scary. So my point is that the terrifying part of having all those coyotes nearby and having my dog off leash in the dark. So let's just point out it was almost pitch black at the time. And all I heard was a bell and a glow collar and a trained recall. But I think we go through that whole stress inoculation also. And actually, it just also proved to me, going back to the concept about courage, I didn't realize her level of courage until we were put in that situation. So that was kind of actually very interesting to me. Yeah, it was kind of crazy. We ended up, she was going through this wooded area. Just people were like, what? I posted about it, but I was working her with the intention of her going through this wooded area to driving through in the dark, into the wind, through the wooded area to Elizabeth, who was hiding on the other side of the woods. And when she was about 50 yards in or so, and I saw the collar, I knew kind of where she was, I heard the bell. All of a sudden, these coyotes like whipped up and kind of like this like very alarm sounding cacophony of howling.
Danger. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were very close. My guess is they were probably in the depression, which it was a very shallow ravine. They were probably in the depression, maybe on the way to go harass your cows, Robin. And at that point, I'm like, Prize, come. I recalled her, which she was not happy about. She didn't want to recall, but she did, which I was really proud of her for. And I looked back at the GPS track after, and she was only 100 feet from Elizabeth at that time. And once I got her back, I put her on leash and she's like, but she's in there. We got to go get her. She was in Odor. She's trying to pull me into the woods again. But she didn't react really to the coyotes. And even though she was downwind of them and you couldn't miss them, I mean, they were loud at that point. So anyway, got her back on leash and you could hear them get farther away. I brought her to the other side of the woods and then released her again. And then she went off and found Elizabeth, because otherwise it's kind of like you came back to me, and that's almost like that was a big punisher for her, because what she really wanted was to go get Elizabeth.
Which is actually not only were the coyotes stress.
Yeah.
But then they getting called off Odor.
Yeah. Yeah. Which
and
she was
moved,
not happy with. Yeah.
Right. And re-released. That's also a stress inoculation.
Yeah.
Because now you get to go do the thing. And so I think that people don't realize sometimes that we do stress inoculations, But if you actually think about it in a training aspect,
Mm-hmm.
that's actually, you're building resiliency.
Yeah. That did it. That search actually built a ton of resilience, I think, for both of us.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like, I was like, okay, first of all, our odor obedience is well on point, right? Granted, I need to keep working on those recalls because that was a punisher for her to have to recall off of odor. So I need to put a little bit more, I have to kind of pay some of those recalls just to make sure that's still there. And the fact that I really can, it was a little bit, I think it cemented it was definitely stress inoculation.
Right.
And luckily,
On both of you.
it was just a training. Exactly. It was just a training search. I mean, it wasn't.
Well, and you and I were talking about it, and it comes down to it when you were talking about this, and I don't think anything of it anymore because I've been doing FEMA work for so long.
Right.
Of sending a dog into a place where they could very well die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's what the FEMA work, that's what the special forces dog do.
Mm-hmm.
They go because we've inoculated them enough times that no, it's just going to be fine. Trust me, to get there. And it's inoculation on behalf of the dog, but also on behalf of the human.
Yeah.
And Crystal, I think about what you guys do with the bite work dogs, and you don't start out with an itty bitty puppy doing all of the big stuff. You have to teach them that they're brave enough to take down a human.
Well, and if you're selectively breeding, they kind of want to do that from the gates.
Well, right.
But you have to teach them in a way that's going to keep them successful throughout their entire career, being smart about who you work with so that they don't have bad experiences. And each of those experiences build on the previous, because I think sometimes we think we have these badass dogs that can just do everything. And I feel that Yukon really taught me that lesson because he was the all-star puppy. He loved all the things. He was number one in all the classes. And I always kind of go back and question just a little bit of, did I push too hard? Because he was so amazing. He could do so many things. I don't think I did. I mean, he's a special boy. But I do think, and I see people pushing their dogs too hard. So that's kind of the opposite side of it, where they expect so much because of the pedigree, and it's a puppy, for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
Let it puppy. Build confidence in a strategic way.
Yes.
But remember, it's a baby, and let it have a baby brain and not have to go through too much. So that's where it takes a good trainer to know the amount and be able to read the dog and read the amount of pressure that you're putting on them.
Yeah. Yeah. Genetics is no replacement for training.
Yeah. And I love how you talked about how you're incorporating the scent work piece into building the confidence. What are some more examples that you guys can think of that you've used the actual odor to build the confidence?
If I think about I'm doing two things with this, because one of the very basic things that I will do with some of, especially my disaster dogs, is I throw a toy up on the pile and they hunt the pile to go retrieve their toy. Well, when I first start this, they get to see me throw the toy up on the pile, and I might have somebody catch it. Or if I'm really lucky, I can actually get a good throw and the toy doesn't end up in the bowels of the rubble pile. But the other thing is that I progress really quick to all they get is the odor of the toy to pull them up on the pile. But if you think about the other side of that, they have to really want whatever thing I'm throwing up on the pile. And so I have to build a whole bunch of reinforcement stuff into that toy, which might be, I'm throwing it into tall grass. I'm throwing it into a stack of boxes. We don't start out doing stuff on the rubble pile with a toy. So I think that, and it also goes back to reinforcement system, because if you don't have a decent reinforcement system or something that the dog wants to do or work for that you can build, hence why play is so important. It's hard to build some of that in to build confidence and bravery if you don't have a thing that they're willing to fight for.
I think, and I borrow some of those concepts it was back during COVID when I think I really kind of realized like how engaging, because I, was stuck in the house. So basically I just kind of got really creative in my house because I couldn't go anywhere to train my dogs. And I started just pulling crap together, and I had a bunch of climbs. Go figure. If you guys have seen my climbs, you know them. That's when my obsession with climbs started, by the way. And I quickly found out that if you could engage the dog's body in a way that's very safe, that in using their body, if you can kind of engage their body, a lot of times it gets them more engaged in the problem. And I found like with Y, I have some amazing video of him. He was a little bit younger then, about 4 years ago. So I guess he was 10 or 9 or something. Anyway, and just climbing over like all these climbs. He got up, like got to hide up on the side of the windowsill. He was all over stuff. And to see him kind of really kind of get a little bit of grit in terms of trying to find odor, it just really showed me how if you can kind of engage the dog's body, how it can make such a positive impact on, it's like they forget about being worried about stuff. And it seems to build a little motivation there because it's fun. And dogs like to use their bodies.
Right. It's kind of like incorporating.
Yeah, they like to have fun. Yeah, dogs love to have fun.
They like to have fun.
And I think that around some of that is, you're also incorporating a little bit of urban parkour in for Y, but you also have to be the conscious of the fact that in order to do some of that, they have to know how to use their bodies first, right? And so that's teaching body awareness stuff that you might have to do pivots and you might have to do back end targeting and those sorts of things outside of all the rest of it. So make sure that they understand they have 4 feet.
And I love teaching that through those games because, okay, for instance, setting up boxes and cones in a hall for Radish.
Yep.
And in the very beginning, it's sprinkling her dinner all the way throughout like a little labyrinth trail. So it's just fun to eat her food and you're having to climb over stuff, through stuff. And so she's learning the proprioception along with getting to eat her food, along with getting to go over all these weird obstacles and things. But it's just my every plate boxes and random stuff. And it's just in my hallway. And I would just make it progressively more challenging, looking for the things that she enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
So I'd add more of that into it. And so then I also added my crate games into it. So I'd put her crate at the end of the hall. And as soon as she knew that game was coming, well, now I've added the excitement of I get to play the Ninja Warrior obstacle course game. And then I get to like slam myself into the kennel where mom's going to come running down as fast as she can, screaming and hollering and hooting because I love it when she does that to give me my food in the kennel. And so it's also kind of working on my functional obedience, but it's also the relationship stuff. And so you can have so much fun building in ways to use confidence using play to build this confidence.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because we're not talking rubble. It's not talking rubble level.
No.
We're talking, just using their bodies.
Yeah.
And problem solving.
Double climbs, solving things in the 3 dimensions, using.
It was really and that whole flat ladder concept, right?
Oh, yeah.
Of teaching the dogs to do a flat ladder.
Yeah.
And how many dogs were like, oh my God, it doesn't have to be the full-fledged ladder for them to get a little confidence boost.
Yeah.
It might literally be a really safe plank elevated 4 feet off the floor. For that dog is like a little bit life altering that they have the bravery to do and the confidence to do something of that nature.
Yeah.
And then you just build from there.
Yeah.
And so we kind of take it for granted because sometimes we have dogs that do crazy, stupid stuff. But watching some of the dogs at distraction camp, that it was a big deal for them to walk across a pallet. And they were like, I can walk across a pallet. Oh my gosh. And then seeing my own dog yesterday at detection dog training, who's like, you put me on a counter. I do not belong 4.5 feet off the ground on a counter. Put me on the floor. And Bristol was horrified.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. And I'm like, with mine, I'm like, get off the counter.
But that's a great example, Robin. You got to share that one. How did you work through it?
Literally, we flipped into the poor thing was in narcotics odor and she's trying to solve it. So here's me thinking, oh, hey, let's be brilliant and pick up my little dog who's never been off the floor and just set her on the counter.
Was this Bristol?
Yeah.
Ah.
And so she gets up there and all of a sudden she does the full claws out thing. I can't move. I'm going to die.
She turned on traction control, unfortunately.
She did, which of course made it worse.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so all I did was I flipped into, here's cookies. Let's eat. We're not doing odor work anymore. We're just working on, you're going to be fine up there. And as soon as she relaxed, I didn't ask her to jump off.
Mhm.
I picked her up and put her on the floor.
But she was actively wanting to get closer to the odor.
She was.
So you were using the odor that she was in and helping her figure out how to get closer to it and build the confidence that if you do get closer to it,
right.
And that's what I really liked about it.
And then I also had to I moved a trash can so she could go in. And at one point she put her nose in there and I was like, done, close enough.
But when you teach odor the way that we do, and odor is so reinforcing, just by being closer to it and having anticipation of that reward, you're also tying in all those good emotions. And that was in a thoughtful way versus adding so much fear that now you're going to poison your feelings about odor. So it's just, you can use that bank account to your advantage if you're not overwhelming. We're not talking flooding. Okay.
No.
And she got huge amounts of play when she was done with that one. Right.
And she shook it off. And then she went and found her next hide really fast. It was moved on and happy day.
Right. And I didn't treat it like it was a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, the more you do that, I mean, I have video and I was shocked where I was actually searching in the rain. Nobody else was around. I'm at a Tractor Supply. It was great. I love it in the rain because then nobody's around me. And there were these stacked up, like all the fence posts. Like they had like this container and they stacked up all the fence posts in there. And one of them was kind of like wonky and it had kind of fallen half out. And the odor, even though it was a low hide, was blowing up into the top of the stack of fence posts. Well, I was searching with why. And who would have guessed him to crawl up the fence post that's at an angle to get on top of the pile of fence posts?
Of course. Why not?
This is not a dog who would have naturally done that a few years before, but he had learned that, first of all, he loves using his body and that he's more athletic than he was when he was younger. This was a couple of years ago. And he enjoys odor and just kind of, there's self-confidence there that goes back to the different types of confidence. And he actually had developed some of that self-confidence. I was a little like on a shockaroo side. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I literally picked him up because I'm like, dude, this isn't right for you, but okay, let me grab, because the odor was up there. The hide wasn't up there. But, and I didn't want to make sure he didn't get hurt. But sometimes they just like, you build the confidence and you just never know what they're going to do at that point.
Yeah.
That's what I love, nose work and detection and teaching the dogs how to use their nose in ways that pays. That has been such a beautiful thing, watching all of these dogs just grow leaps and bounds in their resilience and confidence, because we're already using olfaction, which is their number one primary sense. Mm-hmm. So if we can use that, and that's already something they're confident in doing, it's going to help us connect with them faster and be able to help them grow.
Yes.
And I've loved seeing that so much. I've told the story about Radish before, but that was one of my favorites when she doesn't like slick floors as a pup. And I would just carry over the shiny floors because it's mainly a visual thing, the shininess. And again, she put traction control on, which made it worse for her. And so she had to learn not to put her nails down. She had to learn how to navigate that. And still is not her favorite, okay? But she'll do it because of the confidence we built and let her go slowly. And you have to be very smart about it. And the first time that she got close and Odor was right there, and I didn't really think much of it, honestly, but we've been doing so much carrying her and just letting her be confident and just go at her own pace, that when she did hit Odor and she knew she'd have to go over that floor, you could see her kind of look at me. She looked at where the odor was coming from. There's like 5 feet onto this slick floor. And she, little brave girl, she just walked right over that 5 feet of slick floor. And she sat down there to tell me that the odor was there. And the party hit. And I just went and swooped her up and carried her back over and we played. And it was such a breakthrough moment for us that she chose to do that. Didn't make her at all. but she had such a positive emotional response to Odor, and knowing the reinforcement that was going to come from that it was worth it to her to be brave, to go get that. And it was all on her accord.
Yes.
I mean, I wish that I could say that was a perfectly planned setup, but she's the one that made it happen. And I love those instances.
And I think that is something to really, for people to understand. I can plan some things to work on confidence and building up some of that bravery, and some of it, you do the background training of, no, you have 4 feet. No, we do a whole bunch of play, all sorts of things. But at any given moment, depending on what's going on, especially with my young dogs, the lesson that I always will refer back to is I will always defer to building confidence to have it being a perfect lesson.
Oh, hell yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's number one most important thing.
Right. And that's just something that I was talking with Elizabeth today on our way back from duck dog training. And we were talking about the whole fact that we really want to set up our training. We want to be really particular about how the environment's set up and all this sort of stuff. And she's like, sometimes I hear that in the back of my head. And when things don't go the way they're supposed to, I'm like, yes, because there is a craft to training.
Yes.
And sometimes the lesson that you started out on that repetition is not the lesson that you end up with. And It is okay occasionally to let training be a little bit messy, because you have to teach, or you have to build that or reinforce that confidence that might come out the other end. But your job as a trainer is to make sure that is not a regular occurrence.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes things unexpected happen, and then you have to just kind of pivot. But I think to your point, you just want to make sure you're not pivoting every search or every training session.
Right. Because, messy training isn't typically really good training. So making sure to tweak that, to understand. And sometimes typically after I end up having to totally throw out whatever my lesson was and revert to something that's over in left field, that's usually when I stop. Because I'm like, okay, that didn't go as planned. I had to pull my butt out of the fire. Let's stop and assess our situation. And we'll put the dog in the car and see if we need to do something different.
It's kind of like when all of a sudden there's 10 coyotes.
Yeah. It's like,
yep, I get it.
Okay.
I get it. So I'm like on the radio, are you okay? Okay. So the other, I know I'm still having them.
Yeah.
So I'm still recovering. It's an inoculation. No, I'm actually okay. I'm actually okay. But it is a kind of an interesting story. The other thing to think about is, and what's really interesting to me is every time we have distraction camp, there's 1 or 2 dogs that clearly is, they're very nervous, or they're kind of a lower confident dog. And the difference that we usually see in them at the beginning of camp and at the end of the camp is usually
mind altering. Yes.
Yes. And it's not a one-off, because it happens every year, right? Every year we have dogs that kind of struggle with their confidence. And by the end of the week, something happens. You're like, I can't even believe this is the same dog. And I have to really think that a lot of that goes to thoughtful training. I know this is the case, right? It's thoughtful training. It's adding in the play. It's thinking about the reinforcement, thinking about how you set things up, thinking about how you change the objectives of what you're trying to do based upon the dog in front of you. It's all of these things together that then help to support that dog in a way that allows the dog to become confident, rather than I'm going to put this in air quote, when we air quote, because support the dog, air quote, support the dog, because I hear this all the time, which translates to, I'm going to just crowd you and be a helicopter handler. Because that's usually when you see someone trying to air quote, support the dog, they're being a helicopter handler. And so that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about literally supporting the dog through careful objectives, utilizing play, utilizing the appropriate setups, all of these things that the dog can become confident. And it works.
And it's the edge. One of my duck dog friends talks about always finding the edge of the dog, right? What they do know and what they don't know. And when we're starting to talk about supporting a dog in my situation, that's also finding the edge of intentional handling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when do you know when to push in and help support them that way because they may need you a little bit closer? How do you know when to step back and let them work?
Yeah.
Or how do you know, no, they couldn't do this because you were out of sight?
Yeah.
And it's like all of these things.
Yes. It's a different aspect of reading the dog, right?
Yes.
So we're not necessarily reading the dog's reaction to odor. We're reading the dog's kind of like, where are they confidence, motivation? What can they do? Reading, how are they going to respond to different challenges? How are they going to be able to rise to it? Or is it going to be too much for them? And being able to recognize that. And all of that is an aspect of reading the dog and being able to understand what is that dog's reaction going to be?
Yeah.
So if I think about some practical tips that we could explain, I was thinking about playing with one of the dogs and an example of reading the dog's body language to gauge their comfort level and kind of adjusting. And what I saw was I was playing, it's not my dog. So already I'm putting a whole new stressor of this weirdo playing with this dog. So one of the first things I do is I play with the dog to my side. So I'm not frontal on the dog. I'm having less pressure by holding it with one hand, my arm extended as far away from me as I can with a tug that's going to be a longer tug so that they can have more distance from me. So I start there and I really try to see what the dog likes to do. Do they pull? Do they push?
Mm-hmm.
So those are my baseline things I look for. When the dog is pulling, I'm letting them kind of pull me over, and I'm kind of going with them like a Raggedy Ann doll. Then I can just kind of turn toward them a little and I look to see, do they change? Does the intensity of their pulling change? If it intensifies, it means that was adding pressure to them and that they have bigger feelings about it. If it weakens or they let go of the tug, that's an even larger, kind of like, oh, okay, this is how you feel. What I noticed with this dog is she was totally comfortable with playing that way. So I added a little pressure by turning a little bit more toward her and adding my other hand, still to my side. She was fine with that. But what I watched was her eyes. Everything body-wise was the same, but her eyes started to look over into the corner of the building.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was telling me that there was something over there that had her attention. She couldn't be fully focused on the play. So thinking about how you can use this in your odor work, I now know that in this environment, there's something over there that would have been a struggle for my dog to deal with. And what's so great about Distraction Camp is that we play in each of the spaces we engage before we ask them to go search, either later that day or the next day, because we want to see what is it about that environment that they're going to be any sort of discomfort or any question marks about, so that when they can go in there, can they go in a confident way and be a little more resilient about all the strange stuff? Because we asked them to go into some really crazy environments. So that's just one of those kind of helpful techniques that you can kind of take now is look to see where is your dog moving. When you add one thing, just change one variable at a time. How does your dog change? Do they change in how they play by pulling or pushing? Look to see where their eyes are looking. Another tell for me was she started tugging behind me. So because I'm using one hand, instead of tugging straight away, she started tugging to the side.
Mm-hmm.
And so tugging to the side allows them to see and face the thing that they maybe have some insecurities about.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I can ask people across the room, I want you to go move over there. Okay, so it wasn't the person. Okay, maybe it was a sound. Maybe there was, what is it exactly that we're dealing with? And then I gave them space. So I moved away from the corner and then the dog completely went back to tugging straight away. So I'm like, okay, now I have a threshold. At this point, I know they're comfortable from whatever that is over there that's the boogeyman. So maybe those are some practical tips that people can take and kind of adjust to it, like reading the dog's body language.
Well, and I think one of the really fun practical tips, for people to think about were either, depending on where you're at living currently, you're either really, really hot or really, really cold, because that seems to be how our environment is working at the moment.
Yeah, I'm hot. Just for the record, it's hot. It's 92. Just for the record, it's hot.
So that's one of those things of like Crystal's example. Joe makes fun of me all the time of how the poor little UPS and FedEx drivers are here every day. And I'm like, they're bringing me training supplies because they're bringing me boxes.
Right.
And you're getting boxes. You have weird things that you might get in the mail. You have furniture that if you take a little bit of time and you rearrange your furniture, your dog is really comfortable in your living room.
Mm-hmm.
Create a little tiny obstacle course for them to have to navigate through to go find their odor, or even go find their bowl of food.
Yeah. Or putting hides in strange places that your dog doesn't usually go, like the closet.
Yes.
Or a hide on the stairs, things like that, where it's just kind of pushing it just a little.
In a safe space.
By the way, this is a little bit of a plug. I don't know when this is going to air, probably too late, but I have the Nosework small space skill up, which is, these are types of things that we're going to be working on in NW65, like putting a hide in your closet, putting a hide on the stairs, things that are just different. If you're always training in your training building and you're training in the same place all the time, your dog's not getting inoculated to anything, right? Other than they're not getting inoculated, guys. They're just, unless you change it up. So if you're training at home, you have to do some weird things.
Right. And that's the safe.
Yeah. It's a safe place, but then get out and train other places, and that's the reason why we have to train in novel areas.
Right.
I guess I'll put a little plug in too. I'm going to be in Kansas, and this is a big topic of what we're going to cover there. It's called Focused Fun and Creating Empowered Relationships. And Creating Empowered Relationships, CER. Yes, Conditioned Emotional Response. See what I did there? I can't help it. Like, that's just how my brain works. But that is a lot of what we're going to focus at that. It's an in-person seminar in September, 2 days in Kansas, and we'll post information about that too.
Awesome. Guys, takeaways.
It's confidence is something that you can encourage, and it's not, you have to allow it to happen. And I think by encouraging it and allowing it to happen and letting the dog utilize what's fun and what's engaging and what's rewarding, that's going to help to build some of that confidence. We really have to kind of let it happen and don't be a helicopter handler.
I'm going to steal Robin's finding the edge. I like that a lot because it is if you want to grow and you want to not plateau, because I feel like so many times we just get comfortable so fast. And so I think it's a lot of building our confidence too, to find the edge and not be afraid of what happens on the other side. Because if we stay in that comfort zone, we never know what we're going to get. I mean, there's so much. If we would just push the edge and have a plan, do the best we can, but it's okay to have unknown. It's okay to not be in control all the time.
You didn't see the horror look on my face. Anyway.
Why?
That not be okay. You're talking to a type A person.
No,
but right. I know. And I will give full credit to the finding the edge concept that Crystal stole. Actually comes from my dog training friend, Doug Dodge. And we talk about finding the edge of the dog a lot when him and I are talking about bird dog stuff. And so it's become part of our nomenclature when we're talking back and forth as trainer to trainer.
Great concept.
Right. It's a fantastic concept. And I think my takeaway is you do the stress inoculations a little tiny bit at a time.
Yeah.
And not only for the dog, but for the handler. And I'm putting it out there right now. I'm entering Flair in my very first hunt test, and we're going to go do our junior hunter.
Woohoo!
And I know
Yay!
It's in September, and the whole entire purpose is because she's running stuff that's beyond a junior hunter. But the whole entire purpose, she's inoculated against that stress because I've been overtraining for it. I need the stress of walking to the line.
Yeah.
And standing on the line and doing something incredibly uncomfortable. And so when you are looking at your dog and being like, okay, this might be a little bit uncomfortable for you, but how do I break it down so you don't realize that I'm making you that I'm going to do uncomfortable? And if you do that in a very thoughtful way, doesn't necessarily have to be systematic, but if it's thoughtful, the dog that you have coming out in the other end in about 2 to 3 weeks is you're going to be like, wow, I would have never thought that they could do that. So, which then also goes back to be creative in your training.
I'm proud of you for being brave and getting out on the line. It's going to happen. It's going to be great.
It's going to happen. Hopefully we pass. It'll be fine. If we don't pass, I'll still have a good day with my dog. So that's what matters.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun. Yeah.
Thank you, ladies, for...
It was fun.
That was fun. And it's one of those things where you should see the text messages about trying to us getting together to do stuff. I have to do this. Okay, we have 50 minutes. Let's do it now.
I know. I'm like, okay, fence guy's done. I got to get to a meeting after this.
Yeah, got to leave it this time.
And I'm a mile down the road on the gravel road walking the dogs. You're like, are you ready? I'm like, oh shit.
I'm running.
I'm just like sprinting down the gravel road and the dogs are like, this is great. I'm like, it sucks.
I'm dying.
I'm like, at the end of like getting the fence guy out of my backyard and then having to go to my team's monthly meeting, I'm like, I have this amount of time. That's it.
So
we made it work.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Please keep an eye on the Facebook page for some cool little announcements and other things, and go train.
Canine Detection Collaborative.
We appreciate the time you spend with us. If you liked this episode, not only should you follow us so you don't miss the next one, but please also rate and review us in your favorite podcast app. For info on collaborating with us, go to k9detectioncollaborative.com. That's K9detectioncollaborative.com, where you can find our socials and pick up our latest monthly freebie. Join us again to talk training in the next episode.